All right, good people. Welcome back here for another recap review show here at Big O Bell Media for episode 4 of season 3 of BMF, The Return of the Prodigal Son. Where this episode is written by Rose Mac Elise and directed by Princess Monique. So yeah, we're gonna get into tonight's episode here. Starting off by saying be sure to check out our 2 interviews from this past week, where not only did we get to talk to the writer of episode 303 and Jasmine, but also speaking to the family of Jack the Rapper. So getting that insight about bringing that convention into life, being a part of the BMF family, and getting his story told and so on. So definitely some very insightful interviews available for you all right now on the channel. With that being said, let's get right into it. Starting off this episode where we get my man Loco and Meech, as they are just vibing. They boys now, because they already established the trust, and Loco's fond of Meech because Meech gets things done fast, and also because, well, getting things fast obviously means that the money comes in even quicker. So yeah, the two of them kicking back, smoking, rolling up, doing all that good stuff. Javi comes in and they're trying to get the pallet situated. And Javi, which probably don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but Javi, in his awareness here, saying like he thinks it's a fed because this person's speaking really good English, and that ain't really typically how he does or how they do their business, So not only is there a little bit of a language barrier issue, but it's suspicion because it's like, why is there an English person on this phone? But Meech again continues to show his worth, where he gets on the phone, he handles it, he seals the deal, but ultimately educating them by saying feds ain't moving unless there is some money or a deal involved. So he said this is low risk because it's low reward for them, which means they have everything to gain. That shipment is going to Detroit, and Loco makes sure when it's all said and done, T is not there to pick it up. So not sure if you have any comments on that, but this definitely kicks things off in terms of what's at stake in this episode. Anything there, sir?
First thing I thought of was Blowing Money Fast by Rick Ross is playing in my head.
Yeah.
It's doing that. And then Fans is Watching by 2 Chainz then played in my head afterwards. Other than that, nah. I mean, this is Meech being Meech, making the deals, and them being very adamant. Like, that other dude, we don't want him nowhere around any of this. And I did like the way they address it later on with Meech saying, you ruined their first impression. That's all it takes. At that point, ain't nobody gonna fuck with you, really. So I did like the way that it just started off. It just starts off showing Meech being Meech, which is highly important to the whole storyline of this, is that, especially for this episode being called A Prodigal Son, you needed to see, like, Meech making the moves that only it seems like Meech can make at this point.
Yeah. Yep. So Meech gets back home to his new, probably jumping the title here with the jumping the gun with the labeling here of calling her his new boo, but nonetheless it's Angel, because as we seen him and her having that moment, and he's fond of her, and she's still trying to figure it out because she's never met somebody like Meech, somebody that lets her get her own money. There's no swindling involved. She's not being abused or used and so on. So for somebody who's never laid foundation, as she mentioned, she doesn't have a home. She pretty much lives from backpack to backpack. That's all she has was in there, and pretty much always being used and abused by Greenie. This is a little bit different for her. So Meech coming back home, she's wearing his sweatshirt, got her flowers, because she was ready to dip. She's like, nah, this is your space. This isn't kind of how like I'm used to. Somebody uses me and then I'm out, essentially. But Meech said, listen, I gotta leave town for some business, gotta get to Detroit. I'm gonna have people watching the house. You ain't gotta worry about Greenie. It's all good. You're gonna be able to make your own money. You ain't gonna have to hustle dudes no more. You ain't gotta worry about any of that. You're good. So you know, she's getting comfortable with him, and obviously he cares about her, bringing her flowers. And this was obviously the biggest gesture that he really liked her, is that she was ready to give him the bop, and then he was like, nah, let me kiss that first. I know one thing, a decision was made there, and y'all can take it however y'all want. But
Hey,
nonetheless,
look, ain't nothing better than upgrading a woman and just showing her new things in life, and basically telling her you ain't got to be a hoe no more. Like, and I think that was basically what he was saying. Like, you ain't gotta be a hoe no more. Baby, I
yeah,
loves you. I bought you flowers. I ain't bringing no hoe no flowers. Like, you know, like get comfortable. Like
yeah,
he did everything to try to reverse the effects of Greenie on her. And I think
yeah,
that's important. But I think it's not a far stretch to call her his new girl, because at this
yeah.
point, I mean, who is bringing flowers? Maybe an edible arrangement for a basic bitch, but you're not like doing nothing else for them. I'm not, flowers or nothing. And
you
I'm damn
you
sure not going to turn down some of what she probably does very, very well. Not turning
yeah.
that down for nothing. But that
You know
was
what's
go ahead.
you know what's interesting is when T finds out about this, because you
Because he
know,
been calling T Tender Dick for the longest time. And Meech done went to the strip club and just broke all the T-Pain's rules for sure. Like, he done
hmm
clearly fell in love with a stripper. Because
yeah,
but again, I think it's because Angel she always came across as being more than just what Greenie presented her to be.
yeah.
And I'm waiting to see how this evolution happens with her, because I think she's gonna go down that road and be one of them down Jones that like really holds Meech down, because again, he's exposing her to a
Yeah,
part of life she's never seen before.
yeah.
Again, any man or any woman who's been in any relationship where you expose someone to something new or a new standard for them to live by, man, even if y'all in that person's always loyal to you.
And and it is going to be an interesting story, because this can actually go a lot of ways. Because I can go as far as saying, you go back to Ghost, you go back to Power with Tommy and Holly. And I said the
Yeah.
same thing about how Holly was given family, she was given purpose, she was getting money, she was given like service, like she was useful. And sometimes people take that, and yeah, they can add a lot of benefit, but then sometimes they can overstep, and then that could be problematic, because at the end of the
Well,
day, his loyalty ain't gonna really be to her. It's always gonna be to the game. That's always gonna be the
you gotta
problem. That's always gonna be his first girl,
yeah,
and can she
you gotta
accept
remember
that?
though, like Holly's white. Like, this is a little different with white women.
Tommy was white
No.
too, so
No, but you know what I mean though. Like Tommy's white, but is he? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's in
you just
between.
you just gave him a cookout pass.
There you go. There you
Yeah.
go. Him and Kate. Kate already got one, so you knew Tommy was gonna get
That's
one.
true. That's
But
true.
I mean, Holly, I think that's the difference though. It's she felt entitled to an extent of being able to overstep. I don't see that being a route for Angel, because in the end, like, she came from being pimped, abused, and used type of
Yeah.
situation to
Yeah.
now being with someone who is like catering to her, which is again completely different. She was ready
It's a
to
look.
leave.
It's I think the cultural things are different, but I do think the backgrounds are mildly the same, because Holly didn't really come from a strong foundation, and as a bottle girl, she kind of was just used and had to go with the punches of the night. If she had to cater to the rich Wall Street people, she did. So I think I think across the board, regardless of what characters you want to attest to, like
Yeah,
being able to give a little bit of an upgrade could definitely be good if you have
yeah.
some measure of balance to it. Sometimes, again, some people listen, there's a lot of money that came in. Sometimes
I
some
think
people can act normal around it. Some people, it may get too hot for them, and they're
I
gonna make
think we talked about
choices.
it. I think we talked about it last week. Technically, Holly was a star tender and Angel was a stripper. So,
Yeah,
it's a little different of a life. You get
yeah,
the star
yeah,
tenders and at them strip clubs, you show them a little love. Their entitlement does rise, because they
yeah,
like, "Man, I'm not taking off my clothes for this. I'm up
yeah,
here providing a service." Angel literally gave away her body for
yeah.
Greenie. And I think that's what leads to a little bit more loyalty that she would have for Meech.
and I will also say too, we'll move on after this, is that I think that like maybe Angel's situation is a little bit more severe because she wasn't just a stripper. She had a pimp. So that means she worked on like specific assignments, like, hey, you over here. And maybe there was others in the club, or maybe that was the entire club, who knows? But she was the top of that chain of, you need to do these things when I say you need to do them. And as she mentioned, it's been traumatizing to her. And probably to a bunch of other ones in there too. But yeah, we'll see. I think it's going to be interesting to see now that she is living a different lifestyle. And I don't know, go as far as saying just a little bit of security here. How does that affect her going forward? And I do, because I like the character Angel so far.
Yeah.
And I do want her to go down the route of just being loyal and down and seeing how that helps.
We'll talk later on about women and being entitled in this episode, because boy, is it a lot.
We back at the restaurant here, and this is where we see LaWanda and T, and LaWanda's just the first time we haven't seen her confident in this entire season, because she's worried about the CPS stuff, and T being T. I think it's safe to say T sells dreams all the time. He's like, you know, it's gonna be all right.
Nightmares, though. Dreams and nightmares.
It's hard to say. I don't know. I'm trying to be fair to T here, but it's hard to say like the things he's saying. Like, he's saying them to provide comfort, but he doesn't have a plan, and he still isn't even aware of who called CPS. Either are we. All we can do is just start checking off folks, which I still think is Brian. I know you all in the comments were saying Brian. I hear some folks saying Henrietta. Even folks saying Lakeisha, but Lakeisha I think should be X'd off, because there's no way she did all of that for it to be like a completely ridiculous. But yeah, she's promised, she's worried, and T promises that it's gonna be okay. And I love how they allow the PAs and let's just say T's crew, how they allow them to get their comedic chops, because I love how we get them to be right behind them saying, come on, bro, you don't need to put another one in there, she already pregnant. So I love Roland. And whether this is the last episode that Roland is involved, because it seems like Roland wants to go take care of the family, which Roland is a proxy of another character, so this sort of makes sense here. I did enjoy that they made sure that we are aware of what Roland's presence is on the show, but within the crew. But yeah, Roland getting the Roland chops in, Hoop getting up saying, listen, we need the shipment, because you know that's the top person there. Back to business. Ain't no jokes with Hoop. And we get the tidbit that the king has returned, because Meech is also here. So I loved everything about this moment. I love that Meech took the moment to give Roland that love for looking out for moms, which is dope, because this tells you one thing. No one told him to do so. He just did it because he lived across the street, which anybody that lived in the neighborhood, your neighbors, your close neighbors had a key to your house. So the fact that Roland did all of this to go out the way to protect family, I mean, that's got to be the top tier level of loyalty within this. I wonder now with Roland leaving, does that cause some type of issue within the crew? Hopefully not. Could be, could not. Who knows?
Well, I mean, him leaving the business, I don't think he's going to leave the show, nor do I think he's going to leave the crew. He's just going to step to the side of the business part of it. So, I mean, he's still going to most likely he's still going to pop around. And still mess with the family and things of this nature, because that's who he is. He is still like their right hand man in the end. And you don't have to be in the business to be that connected. He's still Meech's still gonna depend on him, like, hey man, I need this for moms, or if something happens, you know who the first call he gonna make to make sure the family's okay.
Yeah. I respect that. So Roland, even talking about like Meech getting stuff for his son, got his son in Gucci or whatnot, but it gets right to Meech and T, because T wants to know, why are you here? This is obviously because T wants to run things himself. It is both of their businesses, but he's like, hey, you're kind of on my territory, not in a hostile way, but he's like, what do you here? I'm handling this, but he lets him know like listen. Oh, before we even get to that, Meech also telling T that he thinks Markeisha was the one to call CPS. But he says, listen, that shipment coming in tomorrow is 250 keys. Do not get in the comments and tell me that I'm wrong here. He said
Well, no,
250.
initially
Yeah,
he said
yeah.
250
I know.
keys.
You know how
And then
people are.
we know
Yes.
we know what it went to.
Yeah.
But yes, initially he said 250 keys.
Yep. So 250 keys. So this is them just setting the table here. You know, me saying I think Marquisha don't want to call CPS. Shipment coming in tomorrow, 250 keys, letting them know that Brian and Henrietta are on move. So you got to keep a lookout for them. And then Meech being back. And when he's back, he is calling the shots. And the difference between the philosophy here is Meech is willing to call the shots and does not see any of the repercussions of his actions, where T is trying to be more calculated and not willing to take the same risk. I'm not going to go as far as diving into the psychologies of the two brothers from what we know from the documentaries and other bit of media with them. Yeah. But I don't know, is this completely accurate? I felt like Meech was the one that was more like,
well, you know, him not thinking about the repercussions. It's not necessarily him not thinking about what could be bad for the business. The repercussions for me that Meech is not looking at is him circumventing T. That's the repercussion he's not thinking about, because he's thinking like, we brothers, we cool, we family. Like, yeah, I could come back in and step in, but he didn't understand how that looked with T. You come back in and you start calling shots. You done made T Memphis Bleak. Like, he like, man, now I got to step to the side all over again. And that's the problem here with them, is that T is trying to make it known like, I'm the man here. I'm the dude you need to follow. The moment Meech comes back, that's why I love T's reaction to it. Because it wasn't necessarily like, I'm not happy to see my brother. It's immediately T's thinking about the business. Like, dude, why are you here? Like, he understood the moment he saw Meech, like, you're sending a mixed signal to the folks who are under us, and I can't have that happen, because when you leave, your presence is still going to loom with them. And that's when loyalty gets questioned, and who are we actually following? Meech showed up for 48 hours and he ran stuff, so why are we listening to T?
It is. So now we get Detective Jen now here, and Detective Jen is paying honor to her sister. I think this was as soon as I saw how this scene was opening, I was just ready. I'm like, okay, this is going to answer a lot of questions. But before I can even start to focus on Detective Jen and her mindset, her emotions, and anything about her sister and where she's at, Detective Brian walks in. I'm just like, oh, well, here we go. We getting right into it here. But he comes in and he's checking on her. These two got a weird and interesting relationship. I think the one thing I didn't speak about this season yet is, let's not forget that they had a romantic relationship. So while this is very toxic, while this is super unorthodox, there's this very thin line of, I don't know, can you say like a pipeline that they can communicate with, where everything's just like off the table?
Pipeline.
That's a good one. Hey, look, that's a good one.
Look. I think this is a situation where, in the end, they still care for each other.
In a weird way.
The way everything ended is what has her upset with Brian. Brian, being a typical man, is like, it is what it is, but it doesn't change my feelings for you. So in the end, they still care for one another. And that's why I like this conversation, because that's what the conversation was about. Her going to Brian, like, why were you there? Like, it must have been important that you did that. Him, like, I came back and saved you. Basically saying, I didn't have to do that, but I did it because I care for you, that I came back and saved you. And then the jockeying between the two, and me apologizing before you get into it. I must apologize to Detective Jen, because I think everyone else owes her an apology, who immediately thought she was dirty when she stole those bricks. And she's back on the list as one of the most loyal cops.
No one could have predicted this. I don't care how good you are and what you do. No one could predict this, because I never thought she was dirty per se. You know, we got our differences on what that term means.
Well, but I definitely did it for Kevin.
I absolutely thought she did it for Kevin, which is interesting, because let me just go over everything, and then I'm gonna tell you exactly why I landed on that and how that was like quickly debunked by something, but it still brings up some important questions. But yeah, he came to check in if she was okay. She obviously didn't care about that, but wants to know, why were you there? Why was the BMF boys and the PA boys telling you, you know? So she says, listen, I'm gonna find out all that bullshit that you in, and I'm gonna make sure that the report hits the desk, you know. And he said, well, you know, ensure that when you do, you also let them know you helped me replace in your confession 2 bricks of cocaine with something synthetic there. Because, you know, tampering with evidence ain't a good move here. So at this point right here, I'm like, wait, what? So my mind goes back to your thing. Was it financial? Was there some reason that they did this? Were they in some financial hole? But, you know, not here nor there. Hold that for a second. But then she says, nah, you ain't got to even worry about that, because I already swapped it out. I swapped that fake shit out with the real shit. You know, that what Saint had. So you ain't got to worry about that. So she said, I picked up a thing or two from working with you. But, you know, the thing, and when it appears she had the upper hand of leverage here, he says, like, you know, one thing we can relate to is how far we would go for our families. And I'm doing everything to protect my son. I guess, you know, and if we get a chance to talk to Kelly, I would love to know exactly at this moment, what was she thinking? Because she felt very righteous in what she was going to do. At this point now, I'm like, oh, she's going to dig a little deeper. And if Bryant's name comes up again, you know, once that ambulance digging, and if he comes up again, I'm going to the top with this. But I think it was a measure of reset once she either heard family or Kevin, or maybe just the both. And also right there, while she's honoring her sister, like, which that's still a lot more story that they can tap into, you know. An array of feelings have really crossed her head. And why I'm never going to like completely promote this or sit here and condone this, I would not be surprised if we see Detective Jen self-harming next episode by measure of conflict, where she doesn't know what she wants to do. I mean, she's having the time of her life with Detective Amberson. I mean, they're doing their thing. You know, they're having fun. They're taking people down. They're getting ice cream, as they say. But now you're going back to like your allegiance to your old partner, which is whatever, your old partner in 2 different ways, should we say. But then it's the Kevin thing. How far will you go for your family? You think, how far has she went for hers? And or how far did she wish she had a went for hers? You know, so
that's the key part there.
Yeah, there's a lot really to make with that, and I'm curious to see how that's going to play out. And I man, I have a lot of different predictions there, but we'll just leave it at that. A scene that I think was important, maybe not, was Meech with Zoe, who's just gotten bigger. That's a grown girl now, who's Monique's daughter, which I know, and there's also a little baby TT there. But it's just basically says, like, I'm gonna make sure you have college. You're gonna get some college in you, okay? So
PT is the important part of this, because we know now, especially after the doc and everything, for a while most people thought Meech only had 1 kid, and then you find out no, he had a daughter before he had little Meech. That's the TT angle here. But it also shows that in the end, he's still going to care for this girl no matter what. Like, he still loves and cares for these kids, but he's still making moves, and that's important to show, because as we get along in this story, you're still gonna have to deal with the point that he has another child later on. And it's just showing them like, nah, he was a father through and through with everybody. Is he didn't forget them because their mother passed away. He's still there to support them, and it's a good gesture to say, man, I'm whatever you need, I'm here for it. So I'm again, you don't want the story to fast forward, but I'm really interested to seeing where that goes, because that could be a very interesting storyline to work with.
I also think too, you just made me think about something. We have to remember that he has a family. It's so much about T and his family, and then Roland mentions his family, and then Brian and his family, and Detective Jen and her family, the dynamics with Henrietta and her father. There's a lot of family things happening to the point we almost forget that he has kids. I wonder if the conversation with Roland about dismissing him, not dismissing him, that's kind of whatever. I don't even want to say aloud. Blessing, giving the blessing to be with his family.
For him to family has to do with this conversation first, ain't? because I think that's it. You're definitely down the right path.
Yeah.
I think because of that, I think Meech understands. He has a family. He understands, one, everybody's not built for this. Two, you can put your family first and it'd be fine.
Yeah.
There's no ill will towards you, because and for me that's true. If anybody in that lifestyle is, in the end, one of the best ways you get out that life is really to say, man, like with my kids or my wife or my family, man, this ain't for me no more. I don't think it's rare that people buck against you saying, unless you're an Italian, buck against you saying something of that nature.
Yeah. So back to this little underground thing that they got going on. I don't know if it's Henrietta's spot. I don't know if it's K9 spot, but it's a player spot. It's the black market here. Yeah.
Everybody got them hole in the wall jumps you go to from time to time.
Yeah.
I've been to a couple of them in Detroit. Listen, they're fun. They're really, really fun. I'll just end it at that.
Yeah. Definitely, let's just say, go back to the homecoming days around Blackburn, Virginia. Yeah. It's the first time I ever ran into Marcus Vick, shall I just say.
Man, the point you ran into Marcus Vick says a lot.
Yeah. Which is why I have very different feelings about who was prosecuted in that situation. I'll just leave it at that.
My feelings go back to Victor Page, because if you from DC, you know how those environments was around Victor Page. The one-arm assassin, as we called him, because he could only dribble with one arm.
Judge Darnell, character that's introduced here, Markeisha working her magic, trying to get the judge to give favor to T, because has that situation with CPS.
Yeah.
Henrietta comes in, and Henrietta, her presence makes the judge leave, and we get some words exchange here, because Henrietta lets know, like, I know you fucked up my shipment. And if it was not house rules here, I would slit your throat right now. So threats are right here in the forefront. Markeisha is kind of like, who is this? And I don't even need to get into all the words that was exchanged here, but Markeisha being aware that Henrietta is throwing threats at T. She's here to protect T by any means necessary. Obviously, this is why she's working the judge. She gets her words off, but at the same time, Henrietta's going to flirt, because Henrietta's always going to try to come up on something fine.
One of the best lines of the episode: "Get out my face, get on mine." One of the best lines of the episode, Joe.
I'm gonna need people, and I know this is probably a small voice to the masses here, but I really need people to really, really, really give respect for what Ren King is doing with this character. Let's look yourself in the mirror for your insecurities here. This is a performance.
They are killing it, man. My goodness.
Huge shout out to Ren, and just keep doing what you do. Don't even worry about what these folks online. Getting into the next scene, we back at the Flenory house, and Charles is working out, and Lucille coming back from a nice shift at Wendy's over there on Florida Ave. Rest in peace.
She had that on the Florida Ave in the circle.
Rest in peace. And she looking. She ain't hearing nothing he guys say. She looking. They give her the double take there. But he said, I fix you a plate that's downstairs. Go get it whenever you're ready. And she is definitely looking uncomfortable in a comfortable way, and also very hot in a way she's not trying to lead on. Going back to Henrietta, though, Henrietta is talks about with Bryant here, talks about Meech being back in town, and with this now, the whole goal is still to take BMF off the map, and she talks about Bryant talks about the father. I'm getting my thoughts confused here. So Bryant was talking about, like, he's never had an issue with her father, when she makes it very clear that the father was never there for her, never had her back, as I said, must be nice. And he needs to
And both of
continue
them
doing what he's
having a
doing.
cop mentality, because that was highly important for her pinpointing that out.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. I think that's really big for Henry. Henry is that, you know what? We knew up front that she didn't necessarily have the support from her father.
Right.
Because we saw the way he circumvented her business by even including Brian in it. But here, her making this deal with Brian, like, man, no, you need to follow them. You need to find out what's going on, because we need to rob them the way they attempted to rob me.
Yeah.
And you need to get this done, because, and the biggest threat was, I would hate to have to pull your son's protection.
Yeah.
I think that is something, I don't know if I never put two and two together properly to realize that he was doing this to help Kevin, but I didn't know it came with Henrietta protecting Kevin.
Now, I don't think it was ever established, but I mean, I think, again, if you want to talk about how resourceful Henrietta is, I mean, this is just another testament saying in the jails, no matter if it's juvie or whatever. I don't think, is Kevin in juvie? No, he's not. He got. I think he got moved. That's why
he got moved to juvie. Because at first he was just in jail. He was at like the county jail, and they moved him to juvie.
Yeah. Either way, Henrietta got pulled in all these places, which is interesting because it's like, Dad, Brian, you don't have no pool with there. Like you can't tap in there and get a correctional officer or somebody on the payroll to make sure that they take care of him. I don't know.
Maybe in an adult facility, maybe, but you know, them juvie's a little different. I'm more surprised that Henrietta even has connections in juvie.
I mean, yeah,
that's 1,000%. A little different than anything else.
Yeah,
that's a hell of a connection to have. Yeah. And especially since it seems like she has the connection and it's not necessarily through her father.
1,000%.
When she said, I can pull it.
Yeah. 1,000%.
That's more interesting than anything else.
Yep. So yeah, I need you, this needs to go smooth or I'm pulling your kid's protection. But I don't think it was ever addressed that she had that pool, but now we know that her influence ranges wide, even with we seeing Henrietta pulling the judge out of Marquisha's face. And they have a past relationship, which means that supersedes anything with Boone, with her, or any of that. So interesting. Jen and Amberson here, and they talk about Cuts, who is one of the PAs that they got from the whole thing with the ambulance there. And this is funny because I mean we joke about it all the time, but while this new generation is cigarettes and Coke, it seems like back then it was cigarettes and ice cream. So when they pull out the ice cream, that's when the confessions are going. And they weren't able to get anything out of Cuts, but they were able to really dig deeper into how they were able to get that ambulance, the finding of the ambulance shell, which is ridiculous that they didn't burn that in the way that they needed to, and then they easily track back to somebody. Like they didn't do a good job of that.
It's the early 90s though. I mean, DNA evidence and that shit did not exist to the extent where you would think we need to firebomb. I that's why I actually love that they brought it back up again, because it helps remind people this ain't the 2000s. This ain't now where fuck that junk would be set aflame. There's no way you're gonna get any evidence out of it. Back then, a lot of people didn't understand what DNA evidence didn't exist.
Yeah.
So the proper way of tracking shit, people thought back in the day you could make a phone call on your own phone and get away with it. Get away with just putting out crimes. Like we thought that back then. So I do like the point that they were able to trace that back, because it just reminds people of the time frame, just like with the ice cream.
Yeah.
You can't tell me they didn't get that nigga a McDonald's sundae. If you remember the 90s, you remember the way that McDonald's, before the McFlurry hit and the machine was broke every day, like that McDonald's sundae hit different. You get a nigga give his whole family for a McDonald's sundae and a large fry. I'm telling you.
Oh my goodness. But anyway, yeah, so they're gonna go, as I said, kick down some doors on the leads they got with the ambulance. So Meech is at the airport now, and Meech is where Meech meets Captain Anderson. Meech looks over and says, "Man, that's a big ass plane." Well, I really, first of all, I was just shocked as a viewer here. Like, wait, what am I seeing right now? Obviously, looking at the plane on screen, you can't really tell the difference between bigger and small planes, of these commercial, of these private
Private.
planes.
Yeah.
But he says a big ass plane. He said, yeah, because it's 250,000 bricks in there. He's like, no, it should be 250. He's like, no, 250. I'm gonna tell you right now that I love this little twist in the story, because if you've ever like traveled out of the country and dealing with like other currencies,
My God.
I'm telling you, they add a lot of zeros on things, and you start thinking like, yo. And then when you do conversions and all that, it gets hella confusing. You be like, how much am I supposed to get for this? And just a lot, you know? So the fact that this was lost in translation, and the fact that they got 250 over 250, this is wow. And it should be noted too, when all this has happened, Meech calls T and lets him know, like, listen, I got to get the captain to the arrive to the hotel, but I got 24 hours because he has to fly back, and I got to get Loco his money. We got 10 times the amount. We have no choice. This is time for us to, like, we got to man up and get this done. We got to make moves ASAP. And what's interesting is that Meech is talking in code the entire time, which you have to understand. That's always going to be a theme in this, is how they handle and use and communicate over the phone.
Eggs were serious, Joe.
The
recipes were serious. But again, that's what I would say. What I loved about this scene and the setup of this scene, again, the miscommunication overseas, when you're talking to certain people and they say a number and you thinking that, like, you're thinking in the US conversion of a number, you're like 250. It's a great possibility. He clearly said 250,000, and Meech just heard 250 and said, "Oh, okay, yeah," because he left off the mother zeros. Again, you said it before. I've done it before overseas, where I thought I've done it in Canada and thought I was spending so much fucking money, and then you realize with the conversion rate, you're like, "Oh, well, nearly in the hole as much as I thought I was." But I did like that, and I do like the way they speak, but I did like the way they handled the work, because they said something extremely important here in this scene, is a conversation between Meech and Terry, when they said, if we put all of this out, we're barely going to make a profit. It's people who don't understand more work does not equate to more money. It's certain thing as over flooding the market. It's the reason your gas prices are high. If they release all the barrels of gas that they could in a day, they would make no money. Supply does meet demand, and if you oversupply, there's no way you're going to make a profit.
Also think this, I mean, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, but their mentalities about what this opportunity means. And I do side with Meech at times in terms of, is it about getting a dollar, or is it about establishing the reputation? Because the reputation, as he says now that we done did what we did with Loco, we good. But if it was just about us trying to, pinch every penny out of this, and we got our money, and it took us longer, what does that look like for the re-up, And I think, that you can take this situation and really apply it to a lot of folks in terms of this, either managing things or just any bit of opportunity that comes your way. You got to think about the long game, not just tonight.
I'll say it clear and simple for everyone out there who loves and watches us record every week. You can apply that knowledge to Big Gold Belt. If you think we have not gone into the hole to make this shit work, and it's about building a reputation.
Leave
it's about
my pockets alone.
It's about building a reputation, and that's what Meech's big thing was. Like, we could lose money, but would it matter? Like, the respect that comes up for it is worth it. We can always make it back in a different way. And I think that's the key thing here, is that it's 250. You thinking you getting 200 and anything, and if you thought someone was giving you $250 and they gave you $250,000, like, you fully understand the problems that would cause you immediately. It ain't joy. There's no joy in trying to move that much weight at one time.
All right. So yeah, before that's all said and done, he goes over to this guy with a truck, say he want to make some extra money, gives him money because that's where he's gonna load the bricks at to move him from the airport. Detective Brian is looking on. Back at the Flenory house, we see everybody playing Mortal Kombat on Atari, but we don't need to talk about that.
Again,
Because,
just like Tupac, we're gonna leave that alone.
I just I'm almost sure. Yeah, I'll leave it alone. Nicole booed up with the character that all you all have been waiting for each and every week. Breeze, baby. Y'all ain't talking. Y'all want to know where Breeze at? He right here. But anyway, Lucille comes in and wants to know what's going on. Where's your father? And while it was very much still daytime, Nicole and very petty. And I think this is accurate. You ever remember that one person's mom who doesn't have any logic in her wanting to just be mean? She says, "Don't y'all need to get home before the street lights? Leave now. Everybody leave." It's like, ma'am, it might be a chill. It might be like 2:00. It might be 2 or 3 o'clock. Fresh out of school. Them street lights ain't coming on until 7:30. you a little bit overdoing it here. Yeah, they knew
understood that threat.
I
wholeheartedly.
I did too. I almost went home. I was like, God damn, she's not playing here. But anyway, I hated how Breeze tried to get a slick one in there, talking about, I'll teach you how to handle those joysticks better next time. Boy, these little fast boys here.
That's when you knew Lucille wasn't fully a black mother, because if she was,
she would have smacked him home.
Hey, you'll get your motherfucker ass out my house. Your joystick where? All that would have came out, Joe.
But anyway, I love the line of "There's no boys in Fres," so there's that. Meech at the airport though, he's moving all the bricks himself. The pilot ain't helping because why should he? He did his job, not feel him. He says his hands is busy. T letting them know about so he's letting them know about what all is going to go down. All before the CPS person walks in and everyone's faking it. Everyone's getting their little funny chops in, talk about the mac and cheese being a popular dish. I need that too. So anyway, yeah, everybody's happened to play incognito to pose for the CPS folks
at this restaurant.
No one. They're there though. There was definitely a bunch of what did they call them?
Extras.
What did they call them? Yeah, extras. And I ain't talking about like extras for the show. I'm talking about like extras.
No, extras for CPS. Yes. Other than that, I was highly confused. Like, wait a minute. Like, like he told her to order the mac and cheese. What happens if she ordered the mac and cheese? Who the fuck was making her mac and cheese?
Unless he judged her and said, "I know she won't order that."
I mean, ain't no Kraft back there, so clearly, we know our Caucasian brothers and sisters' infatuation with Kraft macaroni and cheese. So
go ahead.
There's no telling. But that I was thrown off. Like, wait a minute, who the hell is cooking that he's telling her what to order? Like, it's a little weird to me there. But again, this is just another show showing that CPS is horrible in the 90s. I mean, it's Raising Kanan. Like, if your kids had anything to do with CPS, you might as well just left them Jones in the crack house, because they're just as bad as a crackhead mother at this point.
Yeah. So now we're back in the van with the pilot there. So Captain Anderson, and he needs to stop at the restroom. He talking about makes it quick. The feds roll up and Bryant rolls up. And at this point now, I'm like, all right, something bad about that, but we'll talk about it in a second. Even going back to T and the CPS, because they had an additional scene here, asking about how he going to support if the restaurant fails. He says, like, I told them, also telling the boys to stop playing because they're overdoing it in the back. But he says, like, he'll do whatever he can to support his family regardless. They said we'll be in touch. Told everybody to get out as if she hasn't even got to her car yet, but I ain't about to harp on that either. And he says, basically calling out the place saying we're going to need crew at the stash spot. So everyone's getting ready for this big special shipment that's coming in. Meech is looking at Bryant. Feds are inside. At the same time, Meech had already called the play. Basically, he picked up his phone. He knew what he was going to do. Had no clue how this was going to play out. But the pilot is in there talking to the feds, which I'm like, oh, this dude about to snitch. But then I had to remember that just the last scene, Meech had said he was going to handle something here. But Meech with the plan now, we see the plan coming to action because the captain comes out, say he had to lay in on thick. and the cops are out there to arrest Brian because he's been harassing and following the captain the entire time. And he had a gun. He was also posing as a cop because he didn't have a badge. I mean, there's a lot of reasons this ain't good for Brian, but we'll see how it plays out. Obviously he'll get down to the station and get released, but he'll probably slap on his hand
too.
Yeah, he'll definitely.
Now. So there ain't gonna be no slap on the wrist because you walk around with a gun.
Yeah,
with a suspended cop. But
yeah,
this also shows the beauty of white privilege. You don't think they should have questioned that you're a captain and your driver is in a white van?
Leave it alone.
No. This is not a BMF thing. This is a white privilege thing. And the pilot knew it.
True.
I had to lay it on. This is not a BMF made a mistake thing. This is strictly a showing his privilege and him understanding. If I say this black man is following me to these white people, they're not going to ask me any questions about who's my driver.
1000%. Also, Meech is light skinned, so he doesn't actually get the full stereotypical treatment of the black man.
Like,
but the last time we'll say,
you got Chill the boss driving you around. They're like, oh no, nah, clearly you did nothing wrong.
Dimitri, he's Dimitri. He could be Spanish or something. Also, don't forget that white vans wasn't suspicious until the movie Alpha Dog came out, and that is not accurate at all. That's not at all accurate.
Oh man! So Justin Timberlake was in Alpha Dog.
Yeah.
Don't ask me why I remember Justin. Out of all the characters, that's the character I remember from Alpha Dog.
Because that's probably the only. Never mind. Back at the Flenory home, there, Charles is down there doing the drywall. I love this too. They really are killing it with the Lucille character because I love this because every black home had this too. Putting up a note that says if your last name ain't Flenory, you ain't allowed upstairs. The reason why this is hilarious is because I have no clue even to this day why the hell are we putting up notes in the house. I just don't get it. I don't get it.
Type of mother. I'm sorry, I did not have that type of mother.
Yeah,
there was no need to put up a note because I was more terrified that my mother would shoot or stab me if I did. I had no business doing. There was no need for a note. There was no need for a note. She was absolutely crazy, if need be.
Yeah. So yeah, we get this change of words here now because when they talk about Breeze, he's a fine young man, and Lucille saying you was a fine young man once, but look where that got us here. So taking her shots here. He brings up the check and hold on, let me finish. Let me just finish off this last thought. You got it. So he brings up the check and this says like, listen, I'm not trying to start an argument. Just wanted to move forward with open communication and honesty. And then he says like, I thought it was very coincidental that he shows up as soon as we are separated. Timing is, kind of coincidental. He says, listen, I'm being honest. You're being ridiculous. What were you going to say?
When she put that sign up, did she think that about LaWanda? Because clearly her last name ain't Flenory, and she been upstairs all the time. She been upstairs. She just let Marquisha go upstairs last week.
Yeah.
So, I am confused here. Did she not think about the other people whose name aren't Flenory, who clearly go upstairs all the time?
Yeah.
Or was it just again, we'll talk about it later because Nicole brings it up later when she blows up. But clearly this even justifies Nicole blowing up even more. Because plenty of people. LaWanda literally was in that bedroom 2 days ago. And that name ain't Flenory.
Henrietta, now we get word that Brian isn't picking up phone. He says he is he said this is why I couldn't trust him. He's a cop just like my pops. So there's that connection that we were talking about. I don't know if they fully established that, but this is a quick way of just making sure that we know. And now it's the question is what are we gonna do about the BMF shipment? We say we're gonna do nothing. We're just gonna have to just wait and see. And Henrietta, even with the threat of I warned his ass not to fuck with me. So we're gonna see how that pays dividends for the protection of Kevin. Meech now ready to drop off the shipment. And when he's dropping it off at the stash spot, laughs about Bryant being arrested, and they're having a good moment. But this is ultimately when they talk about what needs to happen next. The local pilot needs to fly back out to Atlanta, so we got to get the money to him. And just talking about how oppressing Loco has just been priceless for them. So now the detectives goes and knocks on this lead here about the ambulance versus Edwards, and Question about the ambulance. They kick down the door, runs through there, jumps over the couch, get a little action scene there by Detective Amberson. And they even have to joke about hot fudge. And he's like, what are y'all talking about? But, you know, just the two of them doing their jobs, doing some copping, you know. We get Markeisha back with Judge Darnell again. And she's trying to work her magic, but this time she brought some ammunition because she says she has copies of illegal bribes that this person has taken from drug dealers, which obviously, if y'all want to know how, just not forget that she Boom's her husband, you know, her dude, whatever.
She was the person who set it up for Boom too, because the judge even pinpointed that by saying he would be nothing without you.
Exactly. So she says you won't want this to get into the wrong hands and how that will affect your campaign. So, you know, she's laying the blackmail on the table to get that done for T. So now we're just seeing a bunch of deals in the movement of the products, and all the way getting back to the restaurant where they're counting money, where they says, well, count money with your hands is more accurate than the machines. And they also talk about how they stack their money and so on, and pretty much getting everybody involved. So this just built loyalty across the board for everybody, really building that relationship.
And the water part, which I think is highly important for people that don't know.
Yeah, well, a couple of things, because money is dirty as hell.
And all of it is dirty with crack or coke on it. That's why you dip your hands in there, and that's the residue coming off their fingers.
Yeah.
People all the time wondering why I ain't never smoked crack and why am I hooked on crack? You handling money, or you in the spots where it's being made or smoked at. That's why. So you dip your hands in shit to get that off of you.
Yep. Lucille goes to see her boo, talks about Nicole and the boys coming over. I mean, Lucille's just trying to find reasons to go see her guy. But I will just quickly breeze over this because it goes about Nicole, the boys, talking about birth control. He gives her, you know, a pamphlet and stuff to kind of work and navigate that conversation. They bring up Charles, and I will say that what I really respect about him, the doctor here, is that he didn't take a moment to beat Charles down. He talked about, like, you know, because while Lucille tried to booster him up about, like, you know, you're the only person that went out and did what you had to do, and brought up about Charles and the music, you know, he talked about like how it sometimes doesn't always work out for everybody, but, you know, people find their way. And and I think it was interesting is that he's such a, because, you know, that's a stand-up man there doing that. I thought it might have gave Charles some grace that Lucille have it, and I thought it may try to turn things into a different direction for them. But, you know, Nicole had other plans later on in the episode.
Nicole went scorched earth.
Yes, she did.
Episode, after cooking dinner.
Yep. Man, listen. So at the airport now, the brothers talking about we live in an American dream, and how they made less on 250,000 keys than they would have made on 5,000. And they talk about the reputation, the impact. 500.
They said they made less on 250,000 than they would have made on 500.
I thought they said
made less.
Okay, cool.
500. Yeah, 500. They made less off of 250,000 than they would have made off of 500, which is true. Flooded the market. There's no way you're going to make money off of 250,000 keys at one time.
I'm pretty sure I thought they said 5,000. I don't know. Listen, we ain't got to indulge. You all can say what get in the comments, whatever way. The point of the matter is they said that, like, obviously they didn't maximize profits if given the, you know, the ample time, and they penny pinched everything, because it was all about, and this is Meech in true Meech philosophy and mentality here, is that it's about the reputation that we've made, the impact that we made. We're able to move fast, and moving forward, we know now, we've proven that we can move weight at any size. So that's a statement there. We done showed in 24 hours what we can do. And that's obviously going to pay dividends with Loco. That's going to pay dividends to everybody we deal with. We're doing something in a way that we gave them the special, all good, whatever. But now we just know we can move at any rate to any amount. So at this point now, we hear T says, you know, I mean, Meech says you should come to Atlanta. But, you know, he said, I got dinner with Markeisha, but he says, we got family dinner. So that ain't quite happening. This is the only time that T might have made the right decision by going to have dinner with Markeisha instead of going with the family because man, it got messy.
No. He went with the family.
No, I know.
Yeah.
He should have went with Markeisha for the first time.
Okay, yeah. He should have went with Markeisha.
He could have dodged the bullet.
No one knew Nicole was going to decide to do what she did at that table.
But then Markeisha and T, they at T's house, or I'm sorry, it's at Markeisha's house. We're the kids, doesn't matter. Darnell agreed about the reasonable donation to make towards the CPS issue to go away. And Markeisha disproves her loyalty, saying, I got your back. But he said you may need to put up some campaign pictures at the restaurant, and now wants to know what fancy dinner they're going to go to celebrate. But T, is basically saying I got to be with the family, but we'll make it happen one way or another. And Markeisha just says like I'm here to live and support you at any time and so on. And what it appears to be a sex scene was avoided. So I guess that STARZ
also bring up that Markeisha said, "Why are you following behind Meech? You need to carry yourself like the boss you are." That's highly important because that's something Terry is also already thinking. And now he has a woman who's reaffirming his thoughts like, you shouldn't be followed behind Meech.
Yeah.
You should be trying to run things himself. And Markeisha did not turn down the head that Meech turned down early in this episode. That was other.
Yeah, they just, for the sake of the runtime, I guess STARZ like, we can't throw that one in there. They gotta exercise that claw.
What Nicole about to do. They like, nah, let's get the business. Nicole's on business like king.
We're gonna get spicy, just not in the way y'all think it is. And now we go to the Flenory house because it's dinner time, and Nicole has cooked it up. She's, letting them know surprises coming. The boys are there. They talk about the CPS issue being over. They giving the grace to God, everything. They do a prayer. It's all good. This, I don't know if you watch Love is Blind, but like this reminds me of the time on Love is Blind, not this season everybody's watched, but last season where somebody got up on there, on Love is Blind at the end, you have to decide if you're going to marry the person or not. Somebody legitimately had a prayer, talked about how they were so thankful that God brought them in their life. And this is actually 2 seasons ago. And then was like, nah, I'm good. This to me was almost in the sense of a buildup where you're like, oh, something good is going to happen here because they done eating good. The boys are good. There's no issues with CPS. The parents are being cordial to one another. And Nicole was like, so by the way, who organized this dinner? And she lets them have it. The easiest way to put what happened here with Nicole, y'all, is just that she was just tired of everybody dictating what happens in her life. And she makes sure that everybody feels this burn. Mm-hmm. Yeah, everybody's lying. She feels like she's the only one that tells the truth and talks about what's happening with moms, talking about dad, talking about the brothers, selling drugs. It's everything. And, she gets dismissed and goes to her room, but like she let it happen. She let it off her chest. I'll give it to you in 1 second. Instantly after this, Meech goes up and talks to Nicole and, jokingly trying to make her laugh, saying that went very well. But they have the brother-sister moment. But I think the biggest thing to take from here is this is a lot of what Meech said to his dad last episode, is that he wants to be the first Flenory to control his fate. So he's kind of like preaching that and almost giving her that level of affirmation in terms of like, you are actually taking those steps as well too. You're not letting what's happening with this family make you decide who you're going to be and what you want to do, which I thought was a beautiful moment that they probably could have spent a little bit more extra time with. But for you, I guess the biggest thing is Nicole doing this. What does this mean going forward for the family, for her? This is a huge moment, and it has to have repercussions to some extent. Maybe not. But wait, real quickly, Charles definitely, as if he already knew about what was happening with Lucille because of the check and her kind of being a little bit honest about it. But I think he felt very portrayed that it was so evident that everybody knew and he just found out. So his cordial movements and even maybe him trying to lure her back, I think is going to make the house a little bit more hostile now. That's just my take on it, but go ahead.
He thought that until also Nicole brings up that the whole time you was fucking Miss Mabel. So again, she went, see, you said Love is Blind. This reminded me of when on Love and Hip Hop, when they take the whole cast on this vacation and they all sitting around the table nice and calm. And then one woman stand up and say, "Cause bitch, I've been waiting to talk to you." And then all that shit explode at the table, like Mama D, and all that shit explode at the table. That was what Nicole did here. But I loved it because all of it is grounded in her fear of losing her family. The best part is her bringing up Lucille wondering about her having a boyfriend, and her saying, basically, I could never have one because the one that I had before, he was stabbed in front of me. I think we forget the trauma that has happened to Nicole. And that was something that just caught us out the blue when it happened. And now she's letting us know she's still dealing with the repercussions of that. Yeah. And saying, I can't be innocent. My brothers are drug dealers. And I know they're drug dealers. Like, there's nothing innocent here. I'm seeing what Terry's doing. Meech and both of them two had kids before they were 17.
Yeah.
Like, you can't then expect her to be Miss Goody Two Shoes. Or what a lot of what happens a lot in Black households is you attempt to hold your daughters to a standard that you don't hold your sons to.
Yeah, that's easily problematic.
Pinpointing that out. Like, don't hold me to a standard that you're not holding them to. Damn it, you put up a sign that said nobody who ain't a Flenory upstairs. And you see how many motherfuckers that went up there that ain't Flenorys? You can't do that. You're singling her out. And I think this was just her frustration with it all. And we kind of saw this build in the first episode of the season. If we go back to that conversation she had at the hospital with Terry.
Yep.
She said, Meech is gone. I can't lose you too. So this is her fear. Her fear is that you all are trying to act like everything is okay, but this family is not okay right now. And y'all can't keep on sweeping it under the rug and then judge me when I find a little piece of joy. And immediately want to take it away from me.
Yep. Well said there. This part of the episode is a little confusing to me, but Lucille goes back to see her boo. And she says, her first statement says, I hope it's not too late. So easily I'm thinking, oh, after hours. Okay, so wait, did you leave dinner?
Yes, she did.
And then go sit, and then Charles to ask where'd you go is weird to me too, because like, bro, did you just not get hit across the head with what she's up to? But whatever. She goes in.
Outfit or nothing.
Yeah,
she changed clothes. She got dressed.
This, I honestly, y'all can let us know in the comments. This one, I have no clue how to make the time and when this happened and so on. But I tell you this. What is interesting that if this did happen after dinner, she changed clothes and then she goes to him and says, I want to be completely honest with you about my situation with Charles. Don't you owe Charles a measure of, I don't know, explanation to everything? I guess that's what it is.
That's how Lucille, she carrying it hard on Charles. Like, nah, fuck me.
And you know she feeling this guy because she talk about God and close the door, talking about Charles and open up another. Hey. But they kiss. And Lucille's doing everything in her power to try to fight her temptations here, but ultimately says, I think we should stop. And he says, whenever I'm ready. Such a admirable guy. I cannot wait till I cannot wait.
Blue balls.
I cannot wait till I have to eat those words. You know it's coming.
You know it's coming.
You know, I cannot wait. I cannot wait till I eat those words. That's why I'm hyping it up right now. But yeah, so she gets back home, right? Because now back at the house, the Flenory kids are playing Mortal Kombat on Atari, because I know that joystick. Or if it's Sega, I think it's definitely Atari.
It's not a Sega joystick, because I know it's Sega joystick.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It looked brown. It didn't look black. So yeah, it's definitely Atari. Whatever. Mortal Kombat. I definitely played Mortal Kombat 1 on Sega Genesis. So
yes,
which is a way different of a whatever. The interesting thing is that mom comes back. And they're playing the game. I doubt Meech and T spent the night.
Oh no, this was only like an hour later. So,
but
after she sent Nicole upstairs, Mama got dressed and said, "Let me go to the
went out.
Let's take this little bit of shit. Let me go see my man."
It's looking kind of bright outside, but I don't know.
The street lights. You saying the street lights was still?
Could have been. Yeah, could have been. So yeah, let's just call it what it was. It was all night, whatever. Yeah, it was. Yeah, you're right.
Oh,
and after the street lights, the kids would be bad. Whatever. Regardless, he gets back, and y'all ain't gonna act like Lucille hair ain't looked a little riled up here. But they said, Mom, why are you looking at us like that? And I'm still trying to figure out what time it is, but yeah, is it nighttime or day? I don't know. But anyway, they's like, all right, cool. So he's like, I'm just happy to see my baby. So she goes up. Charles says, where'd you go? You feel better? I hope you feel better. And still her hair. But Charles in the towel says, good night, Lucille. And
his feelings.
Now,
he in his feelings.
For sure.
He's thinking about the doctor. He know where she went.
Yeah. I hope you feel better. Yeah. She said she went out to get fresh air, and he said, cool. Well, yeah, I hope you got what you wanted there. Roland comes over because apparently it's nighttime. Roland comes over and says, listen, I got something to tell you. I don't know why he needed to tell tonight, but okay, cool. He says he's leaving BMF because, he has family. He's thinking about everything. He needs to step away. He said, but I'm still across the street. So, it is what it is. It's definitely nighttime. It's starting to make sense.
They said that. They said, you still across the street. Ain't like nothing changing.
Yeah. But this is when T now says he's going to roll to Atlanta with Meech. And then we get the end of this episode now where Stax calls. And Stax is like, listen, I'm trying to be down. My bad. I'm mad that I spazzed off like that. I just want to apologize and so on. I want to be back down. And while all this is happening, Meech is like, cool. It is what it is. You back good. This ain't had nothing to do with, your cousin or your nephew or anything. We're just going to make right with it. Anyway, we see Stax is acting very animated. And the way they shot this, you already knew something was looming either behind him or in the seat next to him, only to find out that Stax had linked up with Glock. And this is now a measure to try to kill Meech and Remi Ransom. And I guess T is just an added bonus since you know that T is coming now. So yeah, Stax working with Stax is essentially going to work with Meech again because he's going to get set up in terms of for Glock. So that's this episode, man. Not too much happened in this episode. Definitely an episode that really sets up for episode 5 and things to come.
Oh, definitely.
But I think we covered it all. And if we did, then y'all can let us know in the comments anything that we missed, anything that y'all also want to add additional commentary to. I know y'all want to talk about that Nicole scene. Let us know all about that below. I can't wait for.
And someone try to explain to us, did Lucille leave that dinner table after sending Nicole upstairs, shower, get dressed, put on a fancy dress, go see the doctor, get disheveled, came back, happy as hell, talking about, I only do this for my babies, that's why I'm happy, went upstairs, wanted to fuck Charles. Charles was mad because you're dealing with a doctor. He knew you would go see that motherfucker. And he like, have a good night, Lucille.
It be like that. I tell you what, what's his name on Instagram that be doing the impressions? He about to have a field day with this one.
Oh yeah.
He is going to have a field day with.
I ain't been over my man killing a joke for Raising Canaan.
Yeah, he's about to have a field day. Anyway, y'all.
Rock. Every time I turn around, fuck rock. Hey.
Anyway, y'all let us know in the comments below y'all thoughts about this episode. We see y'all back. Check out those interviews and so on. We'll be back next week for episode 5.